This is Incurable by Grayson Hunt. Hoofs beat upon the damp earth at a slow, cautious pace. A dense fog covered the rolling, grassy moor, so thick and all-consuming he thought he might lose his way. He didn't remember this type of fog in the area, but that wasn't a surprise. When he was still only a child, his family moved away from this place. The only memories he kept of Noctum Moor were a hazy few about playing by the side of the pond with his beloved mother before she contracted the illness. Elliot Taylor spent most of his time taking care of his mother, who always seemed to be on the brink of insanity ever since his father decided to move away from Noctum. They hoped she would return to normal after moving from the moor, where many others had also contracted the illness, but her condition only worsened. What started as acute fatigue, dizziness, and pallid skin developed into all of those things plus madness. Most of the time, she was no longer herself and tried to sink her teeth into the flesh of others. Only a precious few hours each day she would return to her normal self. Kind, soft, affectionate. The doctors in the new city advised moving her to a place for the mentally ill, but Elliot and his father refused, knowing it would be hell for her. They would try to take care of her themselves. Despite her deteriorating condition, Elliot did the best he could to care for her for 25 years. He continued even after his father passed away from consumption. To avoid her violent outbreaks, he purchased a straitjacket for her, which worked well for several years. He cared for her in this way until 2 years ago. In a terrifying display of strength, his mother broke out of her straitjacket and attacked him. For the first time, she succeeded in biting him on the forearm, hard enough to draw blood. Hearing the commotion, a neighbor broke in to help tear the mad woman off of him, and together they restrained her by tying her to a chair. The two of them noted that even her appearance had changed during the episode. A few hours later, when he told the doctors what happened, they demanded she be placed in an insane asylum for the safety of the city. But Elliot had heard of the horrors taking place in those institutions behind closed doors. Wanting to protect her from harm at the hands of others, he decided to end her life himself. In the fading sunlight, he urged his horse to walk faster, knowing if night fell, there would be no navigating his way out of the foggy blackness. Little by little, the horse made its way down the path, and, in a stroke of luck, found a signpost pointing to the small town of Noctum. It wasn't long until the looming shapes of houses appeared out of the fog. As he rode past, he realized all the homes had been abandoned for quite some time. The signs he could find pointed the way to the town center, where he was sure he would find some townsfolk. Upon entering the town square, he found all the businesses and homes remained deserted. Did no one other than Madame de Song live here? Only one woman living in a ghost town? If he made his journey when he was younger, Elliot would have seen this as a red flag and turned away, but he wasn't that person anymore. After his mother bit him, he had contracted the mysterious illness. He no longer feared for his life. After a few more minutes traveling on the main road, he could make out a light shining through the fog. With confidence, he followed it, knowing it had to be Madame de Song's house. He hadn't even known the elderly woman until recently, but she had invited him all the same. 2 months ago, he received an unexpected letter from her out of nowhere asking how his mother fared. He replied, telling her she passed away years ago. Then he received another letter, this time requesting he come to her house in Noctum Moor. Madame de Song claimed to have an item she always wanted to give to his mother, but never did. To Elliot, it was an unlikely story, and that's what he relied on. Within a short while, he arrived at Madame de Song's massive front door. The dated mansion she lived in was huge, so large that he couldn't even see its entirety in the fog. He didn't have to see it all to know it was the biggest in the entire abandoned town. Elliot tied his horse to a post outside, then used a heavy iron knocker to knock on the door. The sound faded quickly into the fog outside, but he could hear it echo through the mansion. Only a couple of moments passed before Madame de Song opened the heavy walnut door, standing before him with a crooked smile. "Ah, welcome, Elliot. Such a handsome young man like you is a sight for these sore old eyes," she chirped, beating the marble white floor with her cane for emphasis. "The pleasure is all mine, Madame de Song," Elliot bowed as he took off his trifold hat. With sharp emerald eyes he scanned her, finding nothing out of the ordinary. Only a hunched old woman with wrinkly plaster skin and sunken brown eyes. "Oh, polite and handsome! Please come in. It's such a delight to meet the son of my dear friend Florence," she exclaimed, motioning Elliot inside with her cane. He cringed when she called his mother by that name. Anyone who knew his mother, even in the slightest capacity, called her Flora. Regardless, he stepped inside, moving to place his hat on the bronze hat stand, finding it filled with dozens of dusty men's hats. Warning bells rang through his mind, telling him to ask what had happened to the men that they belonged to, but he ignored them and continued as if he hadn't noticed. Madame de Song grabbed his hat and placed it on a banister of the grand staircase before them. "Goodness, my apologies. I haven't had company for quite some time. You can place your coat here as well, and, oh, the tea. When you have finished, please meet me in the sitting room straight through that doorway," she requested before hobbling away to the kitchen. "As you say, madame," Elliot nodded in reply, taking his time as he looked around. The place was dusty but grand, with gold oil lamps, carved marble tables, and delicate paintings on the walls. Dark red velvet curtains hung from the windows, tied open with golden silk tassels. By far, this opulent home was the nicest he had ever been in. He took off his topcoat and slung it over the banister by his hat, then tread briskly into the elegant sitting room. An ornate bone china tea set sat atop a carved dark walnut table in a room filled with gold accessories. Madame de Song sat in a matching walnut chair awaiting him with her crooked grin. "Please sit, my dear. I'm sure the tea will warm your bones after the long journey," she cooed, and Elliot bowed again. "Thank you for your consideration, madame. Your kindness overwhelms a commoner like myself," he said, before taking a seat. The elderly woman chuckled and shook her head. "You don't have to thank me, dear. That you came to see an old woman like me is more than enough." As she spoke, she poured the tea, offering milk and sugar. Elliot drank deeply, letting the tea warm him before asking, "Where are all the townsfolk? I knew there wouldn't be many, but I never thought you would be the only one left in Noctum." Sipping her tea, Madame de Song sighed. They all moved away when the illness came about. First the middle class, followed by the working class, who moved because they could no longer find customers here. It's quite a shame. This was once such a delightful little town. "And you never caught the illness, I presume? Why didn't you move away like everyone else?" he pressed, listening to her story with uncommon intensity. The old woman sighed again, a wistful look in her eyes. "I have no other home. These people were my family. There's nowhere else for me to go, so I stayed here even though through the illness. I was one of the lucky ones who never caught it. I'm sorry your mother struggled so much before she passed away. She was a lovely woman," she frowned. For a moment, her sadness appeared genuine. Elliot almost felt sorry for her, but he stopped himself. He knew better. "I see." His voice trailed off, not sure what to say in reply. The two engaged in idle conversation for a short while. She asked about his life, and he gave her quick, shallow answers, not wanting to beat around the bush any longer. "So, what was it you wanted to give me?" Elliot asked, becoming impatient. He had only come here for one reason. Madame de Song's tired form perked up, and she sat up completely straight, her brown eyes piercing and excited. This is what he had come for. "You young people can't wait for anything. I would have liked to have talked to you a bit longer. You're such a charming young man. Oh well, she sighed at first, but then laughter broke through her facade. For one moment she looked down at her tea, and when she looked up her eyes had changed from a brown to a deep red. Now she cackled openly. You fool! How cute you are, trying to act all brave in the presence of the one who caused the illness. Oh, but those idiots in town, they didn't even realize I was feeding on them. As Madame de Song's laughter resounded through the mansion, Elliot snuck a knife under the table. Suddenly, her focus shifted to him. But you're no better. Coming out here thinking that you'd be meeting an old woman in the middle of an abandoned town? You may be handsome, but you sure are stupid. That's fine. I like the stupid ones better. I'm gonna end your lonely, miserable life and send you straight to hell with your mother. In the blink of an eye, she climbed onto the table to lunge for Elliot, causing the fine china to fall and break on the floor. Just in time, he dodged, and Madame de Song missed him by fractions of an inch. With momentum carrying her forward, she tumbled off the table and crashed into the wall. While she flew past, Elliot stabbed her with the knife he stole from the cutlery. Taking advantage of the fraction of a second she sat stunned, he bolted from his chair to the door. He glanced back only to see an enraged, deformed version of the elderly woman. Her eyes flashed red like blood above her gaping mouth, where her razor-sharp canines had grown to extraordinary lengths. Dreadful, elongated claws appeared at the ends of her knotty fingers, blackened and twisted. He saw the knife fall from her side harmlessly, the wound already healing. He'd have to kill her another way. Not wasting a moment longer, he ran up into the entryway and up the grand flight of stairs. Fighting this monster outside in the fog was not an option. You cannot run from me, boy. Come out and face your fate like a man, she shrieked from the sitting room. Elliot swept his curly brown hair from his eyes and gazed helplessly at all the closed doors in the upper hallway. As he hesitated, not knowing which one to open, he heard Madame de Song's wretched claws screeching across the marble entryway like nails on a chalkboard. With a quick prayer to his mother, he sprinted to a random door and opened it, finding an enormous old library inside. As fast as he could, he wove through the dozens of bookcases, hoping to lose the monster that de Song had become. He didn't want to think about how his mother looked exactly like that the night she bit him. A loud clatter told him that Madame was now in the library. Quietly, he crept through the bookcases until he felt far enough from the entrance. Maybe, if he caught her by surprise, he could kill her, but in order to do that, he would have to stay in his current position. Any noise at all would alert her to his presence. Trying to quiet his hard breathing, he inhaled and exhaled through his nose. The room around him fell completely silent aside from the occasional bookcase being knocked over. Elliot's eyes darted around in the dim light, knowing the victor would likely be determined by who saw the other first. Another few awful moments crept by, and everything was dreadfully quiet. As he turned to peer around the bookcase, he caught rapid motion in his peripheral vision. With a hideous scream, Madame de Song descended from the top of a nearby bookcase, tackling him into the hardwood floor with the force of a speeding carriage. Under such a force, he heard the sickening crack of his bones as they snapped like twigs. Elliot gasped as searing pain flared from several points in his body, then hissed out curses. "It's over, you unbelievably stupid, foolish boy. You cannot win this battle as a mere human. You humans always think you know it all. Ha! How wrong you are," she scoffed, her terrible, deep red eyes burning into his. "I wonder if your blood will taste as sweet as your mother's. Oh, I do hope so." As she considered it, she smiled her crooked smile, fangs gleaming in the low light of the oil lamps. To her surprise, Elliot began to laugh underneath her deformed body. Using his good remaining arm, he displayed supernatural strength of his own by relocating his shoulder, wincing as he did so. With caution, Madame de Sing watched his movements until he spoke. "It's a good thing that I came here to kill you, then, isn't it?" he managed to say under his cracked ribs, his comment causing her eyes to go wide. "You're not the only one who knows things, de Sing." From underneath her, Elliot flashed a smile to distract her as his hand crept to the hidden stake in his boot. "What do you mean, fool?" the monster demanded, claws digging deep into his chest and yet somehow drawing no blood. "What I mean is, you're the one going to hell tonight," he spat, grasping the stake and plunging it through her heart. How did you—" she gasped before falling to the ground beside him, her skin wrinkling like a prune and her hair falling out as she aged rapidly. Elliot breathed a sigh of relief and stayed on the floor until he felt his bones snapping back into place. He was no mere human. Not anymore. When he felt like he could stand, he slung de Sing's body over his shoulder and broke several gas lamps in the room to ensure that the place would burn. With that done, he gathered his things and left the mansion, tying her body to his horse and riding the short distance to his childhood home. Naturally, thieves had plundered it after remaining vacant for such a time, but the pond in the back remained the same as he remembered it. The old rowboat remained tied to the small dock his father crafted. Before stepping into the boat himself, he tied a few stones to the monster's body and tossed it into the boat. Then, leisurely, he rowed out to the center of the pond and threw it overboard, watching it sink to the bottom. For the first time, he noticed the fog had cleared away because of the moon's beautiful reflection on the water. Elliot closed his eyes for a moment, hoping, praying to see his reflection, but when he opened them, he saw none. He knew it was only a matter of time until he became like de Sing. With a realization that felt like a twist of a blade in his heart, he understood no amount of monster corpses could cure the illness his mother passed on to him. No amount of hatred could change what he had become. A vampire.